Hello. Today is May 5th, 2009. We're meeting today with Mr. George Hekowczyk. Is that, you want to give me the correct pronunciation?
Hekowczyk.
At his home in Loveland, Colorado. My name is Brad Hoops. I'm the interviewer for the Northern Colorado Veterans History Project. Welcome, George, and thanks for participating in the project today.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's start out, if we could. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your date of birth, where you were born, a little bit about your family.
All right, I'm 86 years old. I was born 1923, February 18th, in Webster, Massachusetts. And the house I was born in has now been torn down, and there's a factory there.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
But the reason I joined the Navy was twofold. It was my mother and two girls and two boys in the family, and things were really tough. So the two boys decided to join the Navy when war was declared. But we tried to be together, but he went one way and I went another.
You say times are tough. You're coming out of the Depression. Can you give us a little idea of what life was like back then, particularly in today's world when we think we have it so bad?
Yeah. Well, it was a company house owned by Stevens Linen, and my mother worked there, and I think she got $13 a week salary. We had no hot water, and we had an outhouse. So it was a little tough, and food was a thing that kind of was hard. So when war was declared, I went to do my duty. And
do you remember where you were and what you were thinking when you heard that Pearl Harbor had been bombed?
I couldn't get it all, because first I had no mentor, and things were kind of rough, and I was just going here and there, not really didn't have my mind focused on anything, and schooling wasn't the greatest thing for me. So opportunity came to join the service, and that was it. So
how much sooner after Pearl Harbor did you enlist?
Well, what was January? I think it was January 26th. I'm not sure.
Just a month, basically a month after the.
Right.
Oh, okay. So right away.
Right after the war, and I got on a bus in my hometown, and they drove us to Providence, Rhode Island first.
Well, now we need to back up here. You enlisted in the Navy?
Yes.
And why did you come to choose that branch of the service?
Well, I don't know. I thought Army was marching in mud, all right, and I knew you had to have some kind of a college degree or so to get in the Air Force, and I only had a 9th grade education, and basically I was on my own, so joining the service was taking a load off the family, and I was eating pretty good, I found out.
Now, when you climbed on that bus to go down to Providence, did you enlist with buddies or by yourself? Or
myself.
And yourself?
Yeah.
Was your family there to see you off?
No,
yeah.
No, just me, and that was it. And
so did you take your boot camp there down in Providence, or what?
Well, from Providence they sent me to Newport, Rhode Island, and I don't know why, but there was a busload of us, and we went to a large building. It wasn't like a facility for the service. It was just a large building in town, and it was loaded with bunk beds, and there was nothing to do. We just walked around, bing bang, and I saw a bulletin board with different places and so forth and etc. And it says they need people for the diving facilities. I had no idea where it was. I thought this might be good. And I had no boot camp. There was no such thing as boot camp. In fact, I wasn't even issued a full clothing. I only got part of it, and never got a gun. So I had no training that way. And there was 4 others that we kind of buddied together, and we all went together. And from the Rhode Island where we were in that building, we could almost see the island where we went.
Huh.
What it is, it's an island in the middle of Narragansett Bay, and it's kind of secretive. You have to have a badge, and they have security on the outside with guns and all. Well, they made torpedoes there, and there were servicemen there going to school, learning how to make torpedoes function and whatever the thing is. And so I didn't learn much about torpedoes, how they work, but I know what they do. They would make them and set them up to another island, and they had 2 elevators there. They were 70 feet deep. In fact, I'll tell you about that later. And it was 4 torpedoes on a base, and upstairs a big monitor, and the range was straight ahead. And when they fire a torpedo, every 1,000 miles on that idiot board would tell where it is, how far from the hydrophone, how high this way. It was very good. But at that time, they made torpedoes and they malfunctioned a lot. So the theory was not to tell anybody which ones malfunctioned, right? But they repaired them and kept sending them out. They had to go out to the fleet working perfect. So they would fire them sometimes 7 times. They used water instead of ammunition in the head. And after it's run thousands of yards, and it's a turbine actually, it has 2,800 pounds of air in it and 185 proof alcohol. And that's a turbine, you know, it's 2 propellers and very fast. And but anyway, we retrieved the ones that sunk, and there was many of them, and we never got caught up. So as soon as they stopped firing, we would go to work at night, work all night. As soon as sunrise, we had to get off the range.
Wow.
Because they stopped firing. So.
How was your diving training? Because I imagine you probably had no diving experience prior to that, did you?
No. They put you on. We had actually three boats. We only used 2. The other one wasn't very well. And one was for shallow dives, up to 70 or 80 feet. Above that, the deeper they go to the other boat, which had a decompression tank. And so we went to work at sunset. And how I got into the diving is I got on one of the boats, and you just listen and help where you can. And they were very strict, and a lot of hash marks, you know. And a lot of guys had ears chewed up, because back then I found out that one ship against another, wrestling was a big thing, and they would bet money, and their ears were almost gone. But they were very good to me. I was like a toy to them. They're all regular and I'm reserved, and I'm the only one. And so I listened and learned, and then one day it was so bad we couldn't go out. We moved over to another dock, which was about 30 feet deep, and out of the clear blue they say, ski, get dressed. And, you know, what's happening, you know? So anyway, I was very apprehensive, you know. But, yeah, I got dressed, and they had a ladder. I went over the side, and that area, they did this before, apparently. A lot of junk wire and so forth. So how you look for a torpedo or anything is there's a rope that goes to a weight, and you have to push that weight down in the mud so it's solid. And you measure out 5 feet with your body, and you're on your hands and knees. You never stand up, because usually the tide will work against you. So if you look at a real diving suit, you see they have pads on the knees that they keep changing because they wear out. And what you do is you go out 5 feet and you kind of crawl sideways all the way around. And in the winglet, you can't see anything.
Right.
And you make that 5-foot circle till you come into your footprints, because your shoes are 25 pounds apiece, and they kind of drag, you know. You don't lift them, you kind of drag them along. And you go out 5 feet again and go the other way. That untangles everything, see? But there's wire and everything there, you know. And I told him, I'm having a little problem here because I get hung up in a wire, and that way there you go right back to the weight. Follow me?
Mm-hmm.
And I was confused. I couldn't put it in my head. How did I get here, you know? Well, they talked to me a while, you know, and they could see I was apprehensive by my voice, and they would shut the radio off.
So you're in communications with the...
Yeah,
okay.
Very poor communication.
Oh, yeah.
Very poor. So I'd talk a while, and they know I was uptight, and they'd say, all right, take a break, Ski, lay down, and take it easy, and then they shut the radio off, see? And you're talking and no answer, oh boy, you know. And what happened with a diving suit, in the helmet, on the right-hand side, there's a round button that sticks in.
Now, are these the big heavy solid metal?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, diving was in its infancy
Right,
then.
yeah.
And, well, there's that button, and what it does, it's there for a reason. It's, if you push on it, it'll let more air out. You know, if you balloon up a little bit, you want to get rid of air quick, you hit that button, and the air goes. You never want to get your feet above your waist. If you do, you'll drown. That's that simple, okay? So it also works another way. You hook it in your cheek, pull in, and you blow up a little bit. And that, if you're stuck or something, or you know, you're having a hard time get out of the mud, the air will help you up. Even coming up, you kind of put a little air in, so the tender will, the workload won't be so hard pulling you up, you know. You kind of help him up. He's taking up the slack, basically, and that's how that chin valve works. But also, while you're taking a break, you hit that chin valve, and the air is coming in, and it makes a lot of noise, you know, and it's going right out, you know, and your head is kind of getting tired, and it hits that button without you knowing it, and water is seeping in. And then all of a sudden, you know you have water up to your breastplate, see? And now you're really excited, you know, because they didn't tell you this, see? And you never heard of it before. And they try to calm you down, and, well, I got to get out of here, you know? And really, you're really kind of real scared.
Sure.
And they shut the radio off again, see? They're testing you, what they're doing. And they won't let you drown, you know, so you didn't know that till later, but otherwise they talk to you and tell you how to untangle and so forth, and you come on up, and you have to walk a ladder up, you know, and it has arms on it, and when you got water in your suit, carrying the suit, you can hardly lift your leg up to the next rung. You got to be tough, and I think I was a tough kid. And you get up and, you know, you're all excited, you know, and calm down, and that's how they teach you to be a diver. There's no school.
Wow.
And if, you know, if you think you can cut it, they'll give you another dive later on, and another one, and another one. I actually ended up with a 50-foot boat, converted to a diving boat, and there was 3 of us on there, and I was sort of the skipper because I had a rate, and we did one dive after another continuously with a ladder, no hoist. The deep dives had the hoist, you know, with a gantry and all. And the way that deep dive works is after you're qualified, I got a promotion of $10. Now I'm a qualified diver, and after 90 feet, they pay you $5 an hour for every hour or fraction hour. Right? So most dives take decompression in the water, some, and then some in a decompression tank. And they do it that way quick so the next diver can go down on the same gantry, see? You can't have 2 divers down at the same time on one boat. I've never seen that done. But to keep the money equal, they would tell me the day before, Ski, you're going on this boat, and I know it's my turn to dive, see, just to keep the money equal between the guys. And there's 8 of us total on the East Coast, and we answer to anything, you know. They need telephone work, a plane, a boat, or this, whatever.
All along the East Coast?
Anywhere.
Really?
Yeah. There was divers in Loveland too, also. And in fact, we lost a guy, Novak, a nice guy, and his brother was a diver in New London. And but anyway, that's what I did, and I enjoyed it. The guys were just like buddies, and the 2 Michaels and Edie, who were in charge, who I thought were officers, were civilians, hired by the governor. They both had 20 years in the service, in submarines and divers. And from what I understand in that book, it's fascinating what they've done. In fact, Michael saved Edie's life in a submarine once. They both worked on it. So that's why they're real buddies. But we never saluted, never wore blues. It was just a work detail, and a hard work detail.
Yeah.
It's and they had 2 diving ranges, firing ranges, excuse me. And the reason, the other one is they have 2 large buoys, 500 feet apart, and it was over 100 feet there. And the reason that submarines could go through there and fire a shot, see, and planes would come by and drop a fish. And they had a Mark 13, was smaller. Some just had a bigger torpedo, but they all went up the range to do its thing. And the plane every now and then would drop a fish, and it's supposed to level off and go up the range with their can't remember.
Gyroscope?
Pardon?
Gyroscope?
No, it'll come to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, it governs the torpedo, where to go and how deep and so forth, by the vanes and all. And every once in a while, one will malfunction and break a rudder or something and just go into the mud 10, 15, 20 feet. Some straight down, some like on an angle. Well, we had to go get them even in the mud. Because you didn't want to do this until you've seen it done quite a few times. And it's the same process. Drop the weight, make the circles, and you find small mud balls by feeling them, and you have gloves on, by the way, on these dives, and you know the tide is moving that mud chunks that the torpedo is chewing up.
Wow.
And the tide is moving it, and the small balls are way down here. So your idea is to ask for a sounding rod, which is a brass rod with a big ring on it. And they send it to you down on that rope. You stick it in the ground and make the rope taut from the weight to the rod, put a loop over it. Now that rod is your home base. So you make a circle from there till you find bigger balls. Ask for another rod. That's your home base again, until you find chunks. And you feel around and you'll find a hole like jello. Okay? And now the fun begins. You ask for another rod, that's home base. And now you ask for a longer rod, and you just keep pushing it down, all right? Lift it up, push it down, about every foot. And move around where you think it's going, you know, and you can't tell. You got to imagine it, and you will hear a clunk noise, clunk, clunk, the metal to metal, okay? So you sink that rod in, it'll slide right off because it's rounded. Mm-hmm. Put the rope on there, and that's home base now, right? It's quite a process. And now the fun begins. You have to get prepared for this, and sometimes you can't finish the job. Someone has to take over after you come up. So you leave a trail for him that he's hearing while you're talking. And the thing is, after you're situated, they send you a 2.5-inch fire hose. Now this is also unbelievable. If you tell it to a fireman or somebody that knows something about pressure and hoses, well, they have a nozzle. It's about 18 inches big and has a big hub on the back with holes in it, big holes. And the opening is a large 1.25 inch hole. And they actually give you 200 pounds pressure. But it's also a jet. As the water goes out, the water shoots back, and there's a lanyard on it. You put it over your shoulder, and you have to fight it.
Yeah, how do you hold that thing? Jeez.
The tide is taking a hose, too, so you're fighting the hose, and your lifeline, and your hand line, and they turn on that water, and hold on, because you're going down straight. There's clams, everything is flying, and you can't see anything, but you can feel everything hitting you, and you just hold it down at your legs, and you'll go down until you hit metal. And there's mud all over you now. You're in jello. But as long as you keep the air on and the water on, you're on the metal, so you feel the metal with gloves, and all the holes on the side of a torpedo are on the angle going to the stern. So you figure to put your hand along the torpedo till you feel those screws recessed, and you tell them what you feel, and they'll tell you where you are on the torpedo, to go forward or go back, you know. So you're actually in mud, and if it's gone that way, you have to go that way with the hose. And it's just like you're digging it, but you're not. But everything is suspended.
Wow.
Right? And you should be tired by now, all right? So here's the end of the torpedo with its propellers. You take that lanyard, hook it on the propeller, all right? Also the hand line, okay? And you tell them, take a pull on me, because everything comes off your breastplate, which is in front of your chest, just below you, and you can feel it, but you can't really see it. But he takes a pull on you. Now you know where the boat is that you didn't know before, right? Take a pull on the hand line, you know where the boat is. Take a pull on the hawser, the fire hose, you don't know where the boat is because it's a big horseshoe now. It's gone downtown with the tide, but they keep it running, and a diver's getting dressed, and they'll leave you on the stage for 10 minutes or so, pick you up, put you on a deck, take you off, put you in a stool. Somebody's taking your shoes off, someone's taking your belt off, unscrew the helmet, just the hat part, the head. And as the guy slides you in a decompression tank, and there's a guy in there, we call him Doc, but he was only a pharmacist's mate, and he was a diver, and he would close the door and take you down to the depth you were at again. And actually you make 2 dives, see, so you stay down there, and for a little while, and then come up a little slow, and everything's fine.
Wow.
And he'll finish the guy down there will finish the dive, and he'll eventually leave that hose running all the time, and ask for a hawser, a large rope with a big cable on it. It has a big shackle on it. In the pin of the shackle, we weld a big washer on it. By the way, I'm a welder, and the reason for the washer is gloves. You can't handle a small item, so you just wrap this around the cable around the torpedo in front of the vanes. Put the shackle on, and feel everything that is secure and tight. You leave the hose running on a propeller, and take a pull on me. Tell you where you are. Okay, I'm coming up, and you add a little air. You start floating up, and he'll pull you in like a floating balloon, with a little weight on it, and he'll direct you right to the scaffold. And you sit there a minute, get your bearing on, and they just pick you up in the air and put you on board.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. And that guy will finish the dive, and when he's got everything secure, he'll come up and they'll put that hawser on a winch and take a pull on it. And if it doesn't come loose, they loosen the anchor and kick the boat ahead, and usually it'll pop up. Right? And a boat will come alongside and retrieve it.
I'll be done.
And you'd be exhausted on that dive. Being that deep, fighting the tide, fighting all these lanyards, ropes, and so forth. You're really tired. And on one of the dives, that's how I got the bends, and I spent 11 hours in the tank with that same Thomas's mate.
What can you describe what the bends are like for us that have no idea?
Well, the bends is it gets in your bloodstream, goes to your heart, it'll kill you.
Right.
I had it in both knees. Well, the water was real rough that day. We went to a different island where they fire them, because we could eat or sleep anywhere, any boat, any island, whatever. We had that option, or eat on the boat sandwiches. But we went ashore with the big boat, and remember, it's upstairs and it's bunks, and being the youngest, I'm on top naturally. And I think it was 11 o'clock at night. I got up crying like a baby, and I was in a fetal position. Both knees are absolutely killing me. And the guys below me, the regular divers, and they knew me well then, and they knew I'd dove that day. So there's just communication. They just picked me right up, went downstairs, went all the way down the dock, threw me in a tank with the pharmacist mate, went back down over. They go a little below the depth you were working at because it eases the pain. See, you stay there a while, you actually make another dive because you're in 11 hours. See, and they have a door, a double door there where they can pass water in. Some drinks, and there's a urinal, and there's a board you lay on. It's a little cushion. But I spent 11 hours in there, and then you come out and your knees really hurt. You actually need something, a cane or crutches or something.
Really? Gee.
Yeah. And I went to the island doctor there, and I guess they just have pharmacist mates there too, and that was it.
There's nothing you can take for it. It was just simply you just got to decompress it. You go down in these compression chambers to work it out.
Ease the pain, and it works it out. Yeah. Yeah. And a while later, I forget how long it was. Somebody's looking at my record, and I had to go back to another. I call it a doctor, but I don't know what he was. But he checked me all over and so forth, and he says, George, you have to be as physically fit as a pilot, to be a diver. I said, yeah, so what? So he said, you can't dive anymore. And I was scared. I liked it. So he gave me a sheet of paper, and it says, blah, blah, that I can't dive anymore. Kind of my face and my teeth. I had an accident while I was diving. I'll go back and tell you about that.
Mm-hmm.
And he read it, and Edie and Michaels were gentle men, but tough as iron, And they're two of the best divers in the world at the time.
Wow.
And they got a medal from the president for going down on a Squalor submarine that sunk off of New London. They were the first two men ever to go over 300 feet on plain air. And around 300 feet, your brain goes scramble eggs, I'm told. That's why they got a medal. And, well, anyway, getting back that letter I got from the, I don't know, it was dentist or doctor, whatever he was, that I can't dive anymore, he just ripped them through the water. That was it, see? Because he was a civilian, I didn't know it, see? And yet he was in charge. And so anyway, I get going as a diver, but to get back why I had to go to the pharmacist or with a doctor or whatever, I was working off the island where they shoot these fish, and there was one that came back and hit the island, just made a Yui, and they're very expensive, And they need it all they can get. It is secretive. And the thing is, I was looking for this one fish. It was a Mark 15, a big one. And it ran out, it hit the island, and I'm on my hands and knees naturally. And it looks like everything was shale, rock. Well, I found out it was shale, because I fell about 30 feet or so. You know? And the thing you have to do with a diving suit, no matter what you're doing, what position you're in or anything, get rid of the air. Right? As soon as you lose balance, get rid of the air. You got to go down like a rock, okay? No matter where it is. And once you get there, then the metal comes, you know, the brass, everything just hits you. Well, it hit me in the face because I was going this way. Well, I had blood all over, and my teeth and everything was bad. And it wasn't that deep, you know, it was only about 70 feet. And I came up and they just kind of got rid of all the blood and all, and give you a couple aspirin and all that sort of thing, you know. They give you some Lexington turpenthydrate, you know what that is?
Mm-mm.
Well, it almost tastes like, I don't know if you get the taste, it's a medicine taste. But actually 70% alcohol. And they were giving this to us to warm us up at a dive, and they were giving us alcohol in the service. Imagine that?
Hmm.
And we would dress with dungarees, thermal underwear, pants, a shirt, right? Sometimes gloves even, you know, because year-round in the east the water's cold, and in the wintertime, people say salt water doesn't freeze. Don't believe it, because we had to break ice every winter on that boat. As we're going along, the spray would come up, you'd knock it off, and just keep going. But I never saw the surface frozen, but they tell me that Narragansett Bay froze a certain year, and they drug a hotel across the water. And, you know, it's kind of hard to believe being salt water, but they have pictures of it. And there's the building right there.
Hmm.
So,
well, generally, were you comfortable? Were you warm enough when you would go on your dives, particularly in the winter? Or was that what you were dressed in your
you dress that way all the time, regardless.
And was that enough to keep you comfortable, or?
Yes, but you're always cold. Your teeth would chatter and all if you have teeth, you know. And when you work, you also sweat because you're working very hard. You can exert yourself there very easily because you can lift up a rock that's unbelievable, you know, in the water or whatever you're working on. And you sweat, and then when you start taking your decompression, now you'll shiver because you're cold, see? But you know, you're only going to be here 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there, and then you're going inside, they don't take you out. So it was different, but I liked it. You know, it was challenging.
How was it? You said when you took that very first dive, and they tested you to see if you, after those first couple dives, what was in your mind? It's like, oh, I don't want any part of this, or this was fun, and I want to keep going, or how did?
You have to, in your mind, you have to say, yeah, I'm scared, but I like it, you know, and I want to prove to the guys that I can do it, because I'm the youngest, you know, and they're old timers, and I was a pretty tough kid, you know. I had muscles here, you know, and so I just made up my mind I'm going to do it, and I just started doing it. You know, a shallow dive they put me on, and then slowly they get dressed for the big boat for a deep dive, you know. Well, that's a little scary too, but you know, you're in control. You know, you have everything from here. You know where the boat is. You've got air coming in, and you can float up. You know, there's nothing holding you. You know, so you feel good about it because you're driving the horses, in other words. See? So.
But I mean, there's outside factors though. Airline braking or something. I mean, to a certain degree, you didn't have control, or
I've never heard of the hose breaking. It's a real solid hard rubber, and the other line that's tied to it, they both lashed together every foot or so, is your lifeline and the telephone. and that lifeline is coated with rubber, but you can't break it. It did break on this fellow Novak that got caught in a torpedo propeller.
Hmm.
But
And that's how he died?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he did it. It was a kind of somebody lost the ball in that we call it the hole, the deep water, where the submarines and planes drop their fish. Every torpedo is supposed to be recorded by radio, and by everybody had a ledger book. You know those big ledger books?
Mm-hmm.
Everything you did within there, but it didn't go anywhere. Okay, how we say on that boat. It was just recording that. Yeah, we got this one, we got that one, we did this, and somebody somehow missed the Mach 15. Went out to a submarine that was fired out but never ran. Just went boom, okay? Propellers didn't go. Malfunction for submarine, I don't know. Well, he's looking for another torpedo, so he was making these circles, and he never found that torpedo that was laying there, but his lines got hooked up into it, and apparently hit the trigger.
Oh, gee.
Okay? And it started. And it just ground everything up. And what happened in his case, we have to surmise that he put his arm out to protect himself, and his arm and the breastplate and the helmet came right off, and the rest of his suit is sort of buoyant because air gets in it, and it took 3 days for us to find him because he went with the tide, like the balls of the mud, see. But he was the only guy we lost, but we did have guys that got bends periodically because they were Iron Men, believe me. And they worked hard and they drank hard. I didn't. And they, funny story. But anyway, that falling off that rock and getting my face busted up, I went to the VA to see if I get some disability, because I had to pay for my teeth out of my own pocket when I got out. And I had hearing problems, you know, ringing in my ears and all, and the government has a funny thing. They need proof that this happened, right? Now all we have is a ledger in pencil, okay? And you wrote in it now, I wrote in it here, and that's how we kept score. But that's how we lost that torpedo too, see?
Yeah.
Everybody was not keeping good score. But anyway, I couldn't get any disability for my mouth.
Is that right?
Yeah, because I had no documentation. But I did talk to an excellent lady working for the VA, and I explained everything to her, and she says, oh, I'll get to this. You should be getting a disability right along. But she can't find out anything. She can't even find out I went to the sick bay for when I fell, see, when I lost all my teeth, you know, all loosenable. And I still only have an upper plate, not a bottom. I have a bottom, and I paid for my own dentures, and the bottom is in the drawer. I eat without a bottom denture. And I went to the VA here in Wyoming, and I'm assuming this, and I'm almost sure, they don't have, as per se, a doctor on staff to interview new complaints. They have a doctor, a civilian, and I think it was a dentist, I'm not sure. And he interviewed me and so forth, and I showed him. I told him what I did and all, and he checked my mouth and everything. He said, yeah, you have a deviated septum, right? And yeah, your teeth are all gone, and your lower jaw is kind of different now, you know, but he didn't give me a good recommendation, so I didn't get a disability. But the only disability I get is they give me a hearing aid.
Wow.
And on that I wasn't too happy either, because I think that was a civilian too that interviewed me, and she was about 28 years old or so, and just gave me a hearing aid test, and I guess wasn't interested in anything else. That was her job. So I still don't get the disability of my mouth or face, and I paid for everything.
Wow.
Even my nose. I had my nose redone, and I paid for that out of pocket. So that's my story on diving. And I think I had my own boat, like I told you, and we worked our buns off. And maybe I overworked myself or something, but we never had a physical or anything. Out of the clear blue, that here I am. I'm still a diver, but not here. I'm getting transferred. Well, I get transferred to a new DE. I'm a bosun mate, right, with 2 stripes. You're supposed to know all boats, right? Well, most divers are bosun mates, right? They're bosun mates first, then a diver. Well, I'm doing it the other way. Here I am on a DE, and I got from the middle of the boat forward, forecastle, I'm in charge. There's a guy above me. I got a picture of him. I forget his name. But he kind of gave me all the work because he's been through it, you know. It's kind of the way it works. Hand me down the jobs. But he was a good guy, and I was on this DE, went out to the Pacific, and I have a recording of every place I'd been and how long we stayed and so forth. And our basic job was looking for submarines, and small one-man submarines at the time, in planes, right? So very few times we were with other ships. We were usually alone.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and we'd get as close to shore as the sonar would tell us, you know. And I used to clean the sonar, by the way, in the zinc plates on the rudder with a homemade dive suit I made, just a mask. Yeah, a tomato can, you just pump it, you know. But you could only go about 30 feet with it, and then you gasp, you know. But the skipper we had, he was, we call him Green, because he never was in the Navy before. And also my division officer, they happened to be both Jewish, and they were nice guys, but, you know, they just give them the job out of college. And the fellow that was in charge of the deck, he was a nice guy, and I liked him, and he let me do whatever I want because he didn't know what was to be done, you know. He depended on me. So we got to be good friends, and I actually crossed the equator 13 times because we were going back and forth all the time.
Did you have to go through the polywog ceremony?
Just once.
Yeah.
Yeah, just once. See? But the thing about it, everybody on his ship, most of them, go through it on another ship, see? But now they're all shellbacks, so there's no fun to it anymore. But this guy Levine, my boss I call him, we got this thing going on across the equator, and he never went across. So I liked him. I didn't want him to get hurt, and I knew he'd be bruised, because you can break a leg or anything. It was bad.
Yeah, right.
And they should stop it. It's no good. But anyway, I devised a way. Oh boy, I got something. He's not going to get hurt. I got him down to his shorts, right? And he's a very light-colored guy, a little blubbery. And I got him right on the taffrails are on the ship, the handrails, right at the bow. He's straddling the wires, right? And I got him a foghorn, boo, big one like this. You blow, and 2 rolls of toilet paper, right? It's kind of hard. 2 rolls of toilet paper in a horn, and he's almost naked, and he's looking for Neptune. Boo, puts it down, and 2 rolls. And the guys are going through the torture, really. He was out there all the time, and without me knowing it, I got him out of the way. He's not going to get hurt. But while we're underway, salt water's hitting him,
Uh-oh.
and the sun is out.
Uh-oh.
I actually made a lobster, really. I burnt him bad without knowing it. Because I left him, I had other things to do. And I wasn't proud of what I did, but he could have got hurt worse the other way, you know. They would, one incident, they had a canvas. They laid it on the ground, and they made like a pup tin out of it. They sewed up the top, and they suspended it with a rope tied to here and there. And it's full of garbage. And you're going to go through there with no clothes on, you know. And you come out on the other end, they hit you with a fire hose. Stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can't see it, and you're running down. You know the gangway's that way, and the rail's here. And you're running, and somebody closes the steel door. Bingo, right into it. Stuff like that,
Yeah.
not nice. You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, I tried to protect him, and I didn't do a good job. But he never complained, you know. He was a good guy.
Well, now being out, you said you guys were out on your own. Was there any worries? I mean, you were sitting ducks to Jap subs or plane attacks? I mean, with no
No,
support?
we had a lot of firepower, small firepower. Up front we had 5-inch 50, that's all, and I was in charge of that too. Never had a gun before.
Huh.
Then I had a pistol, you know. Yeah. But, you know, it's job on training, you know. And the upper staff didn't know either, you know. So you learn by, like diving, they say, if that hurts, don't do that anymore, you know. You know, trial and error.
Huh.
But we saw a little action in a couple of invasions, but we were never with a lot of boats. We were kind of looking for one-man subs. See, if there's a ship way out there, or a lot of ships, they would spot it, and that was their job, to zingo, and they're inside. Well, we were to see if there's any telltale. That's why we'd get as close as we could. And around Lake Bay, there was a lot of that, and that was a recreation area. That's a big harbor, if you read up on it. Mm-hmm. And out of the clear blue, some of the guys are going to recreation on that island. Well, get in a boat. I was one of them. Went to shore, got on a big army truck, and this thing went uphill all the time. Took quite a while to get there. And up there is a big picnic area. All the beer you want, anything you wanted. They have a ice cold running water, swimming pool, dive in. And I was having a great time. And all of a sudden, they picked us all up, got us to get back on the truck. And the ship got something to do, you know. So that was my recreation, one day. I didn't stay the whole day.
Wow.
I never saw any kind of movies or musical, nothing. The only music I ever heard was when I came home. I was supposed to go to San Francisco. I went to Portland, Oregon, and it seemed like it was a coal barge area, raining cats and dogs, and I'm out of uniform because my clothes went to San Francisco. Okay? It happened when I was at Okinawa. There was a hurricane.
Typhoon.
Yeah, it cleared the island, cleared everything. Everything was in the water.
Yeah.
And I stayed there a while and hooked a ride going to San Francisco. But to get to Okinawa, I have a story. I'm in Hong Kong, okay?
Wow.
I'm in Hong Kong, and we're at anchor, and I'm in charge of the First Division, and I'm getting Chinese people to paint the boat, and they use 2 sandpans. The paint is in that sandpan, the painter is in his sandpan. They have a long bamboo pole, and they tied a brush on the end of the pole, and he reaches the paint like that, and they paint the boat that way. Now they're painting the boat, the ocean, the chickens, the dogs, and everybody else on the boat, because they're underneath, you know. And I paid them to all the garbage from the day. And I couldn't put it in their boat. I had to throw it in the water, and they scooped it out.
Wow.
But if you go ashore that night, you'll see little bamboo mats they make. There'll be sweet peas, mashed potatoes, this or that, and sometimes silverware, and they hide it underneath. So the British detectives, they walk along and see everything going along, and these people especially, because they're tourists, and they also check the cuticles on their fingernails. If the cuticles are large, they bring you to jail, and blah, blah, blah. They end up giving you a knapsack, and they tell you to go to Macau. They tell you, they never make Macau. You can't do it. It's impossible. You can go by boat, but the animals will eat you, you know. So
wow.
That's how they do it, and it's not nice. And I don't know if this for a fact. I know if you get leprosy, they send you to, I forget what island it is, but they want to get rid of you.
Wow. What was that like? I imagine, growing up, you probably didn't travel too far away from Webster. Now you're here halfway around the world in these exotic locations. What was that like to experience stuff like that?
Just, I wouldn't believe it, go ashore in China. I never saw anything like this,
Yeah.
Young,
Yeah.
with the other guys, this is fun, Went to one stand where they had large, those tops of glass in the apothecary. They had big ones, small ones. Had candy, I remember, right? And you take the top off, take the candy out, and you pay for it. Well, they have beetles in them, and they go by size. And there's a newspaper guy there, boy, and we're all having fun, And he's pointing, he wants one of them. They love them. So I said, give him one, we pay for it. And take off the feet and throw it away and chew it right up, and brown juice come out of his mouth. And the guys are laughing. I give him another one, It's having a great time. The kid was happy as anything, He's getting something that was great there. So that was the fun, and then get on a rickshaw, and go to a place to have a beer, and stomp on the thing and have him go faster, show him a package of cigarettes, and he's really cooking now, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was fun, but being away from home, I kind of forgot all about home, because home wasn't very good,
Well, now, did you write back and forth to your mom? How was communications that way at all?
Very, very poor.
Was it?
Yeah. I don't think I wrote 6 letters in 4 years' time. And I didn't have communication home. We didn't have a phone either.
Right, yeah.
Didn't have hot water either, So. But anyway, I was pretty comfortable in the Navy. I liked what I was doing, except that officer in charge, he was proud to have a diver, so he had this signalman flashing everybody. You need zinc plates changed, and this, and I got a diver aboard. There's not that many of them. So.
Yeah.
And I didn't like changing zinc plates. It's not a good job. And didn't have tools either for it. DE didn't have, as per se, tools. All they had was paintbrushes. Really.
When you say DE, you're talking destroyer escort?
Yeah, that's what it is.
What was the name of your ship? Do you remember?
Charles E. Brannon, 447. And it was a hurry-up job for a destroyer. The metal wasn't very strong. In fact, get back to Hong Kong, I had enough points to go home. He wouldn't leave me because there's no diver around. So he was proud, but I wasn't. So I complained and I did everything, I even got upset and, almost lost a stripe, And finally he said, okay. He said, destination, I still got it. Ultimatum, Fargo Building, Boston, Mass. All right, how do I get there? $17 in my pocket. And the boat comes along, and takes the steward and so forth to go get supplies. Bingo, I'm on that boat. I get over there. I talk to so-and-so, get on this boat to get over there, right?
Jeez.
That's how I got to Okinawa. And going there, I'm on a DE, right? No, before that. I go back. I want to go by Okinawa. There's a big storm. There's a big APA with a big hole in the side. And we're standing by to help them. If they got aboard our ship, we'd sink. There's that many men. They got hit by a depth charge, I think.
Ah, jeez.
But they got by good. But our mast was going like this. And they're fully built. And they're welded on the bottom. I'm a welder, all right? Ski, go see what you can do, you know? So every time with yaw.
Now, were you a welder before you went into the service?
Yeah.
Or is that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, my
Okay.
mother sent me to a school in Rhode Island, to a welding school, and I enjoyed it, you know. It was pretty good with my hands. And my brother also. I have a record of a chip for $15 that I paid for welding or something, supplies or something back then. And the school was $100 back. Very good. So I've used it all my life. It was a good thing. But getting back to the mast and the storm, two other guys, I forget their names, they weren't sick, right? It looks like the three of us weren't sick. So they'd get pieces of iron, whatever, to put on the cable, where we'd come back with the yaw of the ship, and I'd weld it as fast as I could with as much heat as I get to the plate. It'd either rip the plate up or break the weld. So we did that, would you believe, for 3 days?
Wow.
And we finally lost the ship, the mast. And I never thought of it, but that guy upstairs gave me a recommendation, the three of us. And I have a record of it, gave me $2 a month more. And we didn't save the mast, but that's a story. But anyway, I hitchhiked to Okinawa. I never a plane ride, and I got on an APA going to San Francisco with my got on this APA, and then I got on another APA going to San Francisco, but I went to Portland, Oregon. So my clothes went that way, and I went this way.
Oh, jeez.
So here I am in Portland, Oregon, and there's soldiers there. There's a big army base there. I forget the name of it. So I'm talking to guys, and oh, come on, you know. I go over there, read, they give me a bunk and all, you know, give me change clothes. I'm like a soldier now. And they had a bulletin board with these guys are going here by this, and it was mostly by train. So there's, I got to talking to different guys, you know. Hey, I gotta get out of here. They're all soldiers, you know. But I'm a soldier uniform. and you know, look, I talked to anybody that had brass, you know. Can you help me out? Well, finally, I got on a train with soldiers, cross country, right, cross country, and they're in Boston, all right. And as soon as I get off the train, the shore patrol picked me up. I'm out of uniform.
Oh, jeez.
Because, you know, I only had blue pants and a army this or vice versa, because that's all the clothes I had.
Right.
In a ditty bag, and $17. So they said, I gotta bring you in. He said, I gotta bring you to the Fargo building. I said, oh, thanks. I gotta go there anyway. So they put me in a cage and and that was all straightened out. And I went down below. I made a mistake here. I'm only 90 miles from home. Never was home, but once. And when I got the Benz, I was allowed to go home. And I go down, and there's another young guy, an ensign, you know. And boy, I don't know why I had a bad vibe with these 90-day wonders.
Right,
you know?
yeah.
But I'm down there to get some money. And I borrowed a set of blues from a guy, you know, so I could go home and come back, you know, and get discharged. So I go down and, oh yeah, didn't give me some money because I have quite a bit coming. And by not having any leave, you gain money, you see. You know how that is. Well, he asked me how much money I want, blah, 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 and where'd you come in from, sailor, you know? And that's why I made a mistake. I said, Hong Kong, China. Did you get your shots? Back upstairs, you know? Then I went to a doctor. He's got to okay me to go home. And he's checking me all over, and I'm telling him about my mouth and everything, you know, and my knees, right? And he says, well, yeah, okay. He says, but you can't go home. I said, why not? I got everything, you know, the paperwork and money, and I've never been home to say 90 miles. I'll come back. No, you can't do that. So I said, what's my option? He said, well, you got to go to hospital. And I said, is there any way around this? And he said, well, if you sign right here, you can go. Right? Well, there was my pension from the government, see? There's nothing wrong with me, I'm saying.
Oh,
right?
Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
And I don't know that doctor's name.
Oh,
right?
no.
But he happened to be Jewish too, see? And so I went home, and a funny thing about going home, I never had gas problems or stamps or food rationing and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember standing in line, poverty for a can of corned beef, you know, but I got a card in the mail. I got to go to the draft board. I have to prove to them that I was in the service. And I was irate, you know. I thought I did a good job and everything. I said, well, look, here's my discharge. You know, they, you know, let me go. But see, they had a snafu in their mail and all. So it wasn't nice. But I stayed. You get out, they give you 2 weeks benefit, you know. And I'm a person that has to be active, doing something. Even if it's digging a hole so you can bury it, you know. But anyway, I was talking to these guys, and they're painters, older guys, you know, grown men actually. And they said, "Yeah, we can use you, you know." And the guy that ran the job, he was the boss. He did just high-class houses, you know. And this was oil painting. So he said, "Yeah, we'll take you on." And I got a few bucks with him, you know, and they taught me a lot about painting. They were real nice guys, and they had patience with me. And I got to be a pretty good painter, left hand, right hand, drawing sashes, and he kept me on as a painter. And with one agreement, I don't have a car. He has to pick me up every day here, my lunch, and drop me off here every day. And if it was raining, they like to go to the horse races. I went with them, but I don't like betting horse races. I don't know enough about it. So it was fun, though. And then he dropped me off right here. So I worked for him for quite a while, and I got to be a pretty good painter. And then I got a job in a woolen mill, and couldn't get on with tools or anything. Get on with wool, you know. I hated it. So I applied to a woolen mill. They had a maintenance crew there, and I applied as a welder, right? And the master mechanic there was a very nice guy, John Berger, a gentleman, and very knowledgeable. And I got to be the diver, and I ended up working for a guy by the name of Bill Williams, a tough old bird. And he was in charge of the plumbing. And the master mechanic called me in one day, and he says, "George, I got some bad news." He said, "But you might like it." He said, "You're going to work with Bill Reynolds, Bill Williams, and nobody works with them. They all quit, you know." And he said, "George, you're a lone man. I got to either let you go or go with him." So I went home that night, I made up my mind. I don't know him. I'm not going to let him get to me. You know, I can outdo this. This guy was tough. I would do everything the hard way, and then he'd come over and say, here's how you do it. And we did everything from small jobs to 6-inch pipe. And if it was 6-inch pipe, I was up in the air putting hangers and putting the chain tongue on it. He was on the ground with a long pipe. Well, after a year, he started showing me things the right way, right? But before that, to give you an example, we're working on 3-inch pipe. It's in the vise, and I put lead on the thread, roughly 20 feet long, and I'd make up an elbow on the end with a 4-inch pipe wrench. And I enjoyed it. I was tough. And loosen up the vise, you know I got to carry it. He's not going to help me.
Yeah.
And I get it balanced on my shoulder. He's got the door open, and I'm ready to go. And he says, "Aren't you going to take the lead?" It's a can of lead. You put it on the threads. Imagine that. And I'd get it, and I got the pipe on my shoulder. I put it in my pocket and balance again to get going. And you have to time yourself to stop, you know, because it's like momentum.
Yeah.
Right? It's like water in a tank, slushing.
Yeah.
So I liked it, though. I wasn't going to let him get me. He didn't drink coffee, so I drank coffee when he wasn't around. I ate when he was hungry. I quit when he wanted to quit. But after a year, he started showing me things. I could do no wrong, all right? I was basically in charge. And he showed me things that I teach other people now about bronze bearings and lignum vitae and Teflon, and I can't remember this other piece of thing. He was a wealth of knowledge, and he finally decided to leave the company to go back to his own company that was working outside. He had a crew, and I would lay the job out during the week and order the stuff, and he would come in on a weekend with 3 or 4 guys and do the work after he left. And he went upstairs to talk to John Hekowczyk, who was the owner, young guy. And I knew him well because he was out of college, and his father was a tough bird from Germany. And they mostly spoke Jewish, you know, and German. And the guy in the dye room that did all the dyeing, he spoke German, Jewish, and Polish. And he found out that I could speak Polish, right, and Greek, okay? So he would ask me questions, you know. We were pouring cement, and he was asking me what that is, and I'm trying to tell him, you know, it's concrete, you make it this way, that way. And he said, no, George. Then he'd show me. Wheelbarrow, what's that? That's what he was asking, what's a wheelbarrow? So, and one of the guys we had as electrician, I got him a good job in there, being in command under him of all the dyeing, right? He was the boss because he was Polish, and he could speak to him, see? All right?
Okay.
That's how they...
Yeah.
So I got along good. In fact, I taught him how to drive, taught his daughter how to drive, and this was... The company would pay me outside the company. They did that a lot for me for different jobs. And go to Sears and Roebuck's, and they'd talk, you know, in their language, and then they'd tell me, yeah, if they want that, and they'll take that. And then they go to this, you know, talk. Yeah, they'll take that. They could buy anything you wanted, you know. It was that important. And I'd sign the papers, and also, John Hekowczyk, being out of college, his father wanted him to be knowledgeable of the business. They had 2 factories, one across tracks. And me being in the plumbing department in welding, I got John Hekowczyk, a young guy out of college, and I didn't know what to do. We got to be pretty good friends. He wanted to know everything, you know. And he was a sponge. He'd retain it. But he also had a nice boat at the lake. And he knew I taught water skiing and so forth. So we'd get involved in the boat and all this. And during work days, he'd take off and he'd tell me, if my father's looking for me, tell him I'm over the other plant. Right? That's how close we were. Well, his father left, and he took the business over. So I had, kind of a free hand. I hired guys to paint the building, pay them cash. I hired guys to dig a ditch, pay them cash. I had that authority. Just put it on paper and go and get the money. And I would hire guys to clean this on the weekend for straight time, no double time. This is cash business. I had guys with grease for me, so forth, different machines and all. And so I got to know quite a few guys, and they would lay down in this one spot where there was a sort of a driveway where the trucks would back up. Why they picked that spot, I don't know, the sun, I guess. But they were complaining. They had an Italian boss, all right? And they had a hard time with him. And he would, when the truck would come over, those 80-inch rolls of cloth, about this big, all wrapped up, very expensive, $100 a yard and more.
Wow.
Vicuna, cashmere, everything like that. Had to go in his truck and to deliver it to New York, to the cutters, Well, who's going to load the truck? The Italian guy would tell his people, you got to load the truck. And it's their lunchtime. No union, they have a big powwow, But they don't have anybody backing them. So I walk by, and some of the guys work for me on weekends. So they tell me their plight, And I says, well, I could talk to John Honig, the owner. So I said, tell me what's happening. So I said, what do you want, more money, or don't you want to do it? Oh, we'll do it if you give us more money. I said, what are you talking about? He said, oh, give us 5 cents an hour more. I said, okay, let me see what I can do. So John Honig's going by, rolled up sleeves, and just going somewhere. John, a minute. And I tell him the story, and he writes on a piece of paper, I said, okay, keep track of your time, give it to me, and I'll pay you, at the weekend, right? And I just go to the office, the girl would give me the money. Well, anyway, I liked that job. I had a lot of good ideas, and I got paid extra, and I even worked the weekend, and had the keys to go in to check the watchman, the firemen, and I had the filter bed too. So I had quite a bit of authority, and they would pay me cash for that too. And most of the time I'm at the lake, see? Just had to come at 5 o'clock. So it was good, but, and then it wasn't good, but anyway, I got a divorce, and my wife was upstairs working, I was downstairs, it didn't go good, so I looking around for a job, but didn't have any. So I finally found a job at General Motors as a millwright. And you have to be a good welder and a mechanic and all, and I had the experience and the years' knowledge. But I gave a 2 weeks notice, and he heard about it, John Honig, called me in his office, and he said, what's your problem, John? So I explained it all to him. He said, well, can't you iron it out, do something, and he mentioned a few things I don't want to say, but well, anyway, I said, no, I'm leaving. It's just not going to work, everybody's talking and all, small town. Sure. And he says, okay, George, but I want to tell you, you have a job here whenever you want it, right? And by the way, do you need any money?
Wow.
Imagine that.
Wow.
And to keep that story going, I went to General Motors. I got a job. I liked it. Very stressful. I had a breakdown truck with a helper, very good friend of mine, a very good welder, gas-driven machine with a radio, and a lot of tools, 15 miles of conveyor, 2 floors.
Wow.
and 3 ovens, 350 degrees. One oven had 90 cars in it going around. Each one had a number. And on that idiot board in the office, he would tell me by radio, give you an example, the line is stopped. They used to hang pieces of metal on the car being painted or primed. One would fall off and hit a ground wire, stop the conveyor, and you had to get it off. And well, anyway, we knew what door to go in, the shortest place, you know. Take a wet rag, put it in your face, Webster's glove, run in with a light, grab the thing, and get out. And if you had coins in your pocket, you had a round spot there.
Wow.
That's about 350 degrees. They cook a turkey there, you know. But I like it. It was challenging. And the thing is, to 2,000 workers, and if the line stops for 2 minutes, times 2,000, that's what you just lost.
Yeah, yeah.
So if something was down for 9 minutes, that was big trouble. You know, everybody came down. And the idea was, even if you had to throw a body away, it's all right. You get a fork truck, a guy does it, takes it away, keep the line running.
Right.
And so, anyway, I liked it, and but I finally had enough of it, and finally I came out here, you know. They gave me a good recommendation, and so I went to Kodak and got a job there, and stayed there for 11 years, and also in the office there it says, you know, I like the job, I just want to do something else. And, you know, they didn't like it, but 2 weeks notice, and, you know, he told me what I was, benefits and all. Plant manager came down, and I knew him fairly well, opened the door to my office and scolded me, and said, don't you do a thing till you talk to me. I don't know how he got it through the grapevine, but it was all reason. I wanted to go out anyway. So while we were there, working there, my brother-in-law was building us apartment houses for my retirement. That was my long-range plan. And at night I was working on it with my wife, and did everything we could, and he had jobbers doing it during the day, and we built a 5-plex, and then we went with Kodak group to skiing in Winter Park, and we were in a condominium, and she liked it. So I found a ruler, 12-inch ruler, measured everything up, came home and built it 8 times, 2 floors. And her brother actually built it, you know, and I kind of helped as much as I could. And he built the same thing on the other corner, left hand, you know, and very nice, very, very good. So we got in the rental business, it was very good, and a couple of years ago we got out of it, and that's the end of the story of that. And here I am, being interviewed.
George, we'll start to wind down this interview somewhat. I just wanted to ask you some questions to kind of fill in some things I'm interested in, and we'll talk about some other things. Outside of your face and your hearing, do you still have lingering problems from your diving days, your knees, and what?
Oh yeah, both. My knees, well, you know, my mouth, I corrected with teeth as best I could, and yet I don't have all my teeth. And my hearing, they gave me a hearing aid, but it still rings. And my knees, I'll be walking with my wife, and a zingo, my knee will just collapse, you know.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I catch myself, and yet I water skied, you know, with the bad knees, but only with one leg, my strong right leg. See? And I like to water ski, and I made that leg real strong, so made this one weaker. So it would kick up more often, see. It just had a clear blue, big one, because had a tilt.
And you figure you've exhausted all chances of trying to get
Aid
from the government? I mean, is there any?
I don't know, because I'm not talking to the right person. If I could talk to the right person, they'd understand my plight. I have nothing to prove. And being the youngest guy, all that happened, they're all passed away.
Yeah, right.
So I can't
Yeah.
prove a thing by writing a letter or making a phone call.
Well, I would assume, I could be wrong, but and obviously this is going to be hard to prove too, but because you don't have any proof, but I would think with your accidents and the bends and stuff that you'd be entitled to like the Purple Heart and such, but once again, unable to prove.
No, I don't want that. I just possibly a little more money for disability,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And they give me a very good hearing aid, and the girl by the name of Deb in Fort Collins is absolutely fantastic. You know, she works with me. And when I moved out here, I had an ear problem. I went to one doctor and nothing. I went to another doctor. Finally went to a doctor in Fort Collins, and my wife was with me, and he checked everything, and he can't find anything wrong. He even mentioned it could be dandruff going in the ear, you know. And we're in his office talking, you know. Nice guy. And I just asked the question: could you think this could be something growing in my head? Right? He said, well, let's find out. He sent me over to the hospital, gave me a CAT scan. My wife and I came home. He's on the phone. I want to see you. I had a tumor in my head.
I'll be done.
Okay? Now, was that from diving? That girl that interviewed me in Wyoming? George, you didn't get that in the service. Well, where do I get it? Acoustic neuroma is what I got. Right? They operated on it, and they told me ahead of time that you could lose your facial, your eyes, your hearing, and so forth. And if they don't do it, I'm going to be invalid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be paralyzed.
So,
The big problem was, see, when he went in, the war had just started, and they needed these torpedoes. So he had none of the basic stuff, and they didn't keep records.
yeah.
And
Right,
That's,
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
the
no,
Yeah.
problem.
Wow.
Just
He was
verbal.
in the boonies where no
Right.
secretary keeping
Yeah.
track of everything.
And the
that's
diving
why
was
he
a ledger,
missed out.
right? Each pod had a ledger. Where is it?
Coupled with the fact that there's some top secrecy involved with that, and
I
a
don't-
lot of things combined that
I
probably.
can't answer that.
Yeah.
We couldn't. They didn't want you to tell anybody how many were wrong. Torpedoes didn't malfunction, or how many are there, right? So that's top secret.
Yeah, yeah.
And we took it just as a job, and working for two civilians, right? And didn't know it.
Yeah. Wow.
How about that? So that's unusual, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you tell somebody this, and it has something to do with the service, and they just look at you, you know, and well, nothing in writing. See,
Wow.
so
Wow.
I could be a big liar
Yeah.
because I don't have anybody to prove it. And my good ear, I say my good ear, I have a hearing aid in it, right? And I don't hear well because I have a hole in my eustachius tube, okay? And children have that, and they put a tube in it to correct it. Well, I went to the best here in Loveland, very nice guy, and he says, George, that's what you have, and that's why you have to pop your nose all the time. See, this is deaf, stone deaf, and this has a hole in it. How did I get it? All right? Was I in line for one?
Yeah.
All right? So, I can't say it's service related, right? But my ears were the big factor in air and diving, right? And so, I have no recourse to just do what they say, but if I could talk to somebody that knows about this, you know, diving and so forth, but I'm comfortable. They give me 10% disability. It's the lowest you can get, really. But I'm thankful I'm still here, and I'm pretty useful. But when he operated on this ear, he hit the nerve for my hearing, and I'm stone deaf there.
Oh, wow.
And my face came down, and my wife was a nurse, and she'd take my eye up every night and massage my face and all, and it came back. You know? And he told me, the doctor was very good, he said, George, if your face doesn't come back, we know this works. He said, we can take a nerve out of your tongue and put it in your head and get your hearing back.
Yeah.
And I know it works from other people. In fact, a guy at Kodak had it done. So,
Well, now through the years, was there any sort of reunions or get-togethers? Did you keep in touch with any of your diving buddies through the years?
not a one.
Not a one. Yeah.
Not a one. See, they were gone, you know, here and there, and I don't know where. How do I know where they are?
Yeah. Yeah.
A letter would go to the torpedo station, and they'd look at it and open it up and read it before they'd give it to them, because I could be getting something by mail that I shouldn't, you know.
So you guys you stayed out on the island the whole time. Were you ever given leave to come in?
Yeah, they let us go to shore for so many hours, right? And that's all. So,
Wow.
yeah. Now the two officers, Michaels and Edie, they were married. They'd go ashore and stay as long as they want, you know. And the boat would go out, and he'd catch up to it, you know. The job he did after we had it going, we know how to do it, period, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we did a lot of things that we shouldn't have done that he scolded us for. But, you know, that was the service. And I enjoyed it, I worked hard, and I earned my $21 a month plus diving. And then I wanted a chance to go further on into diving, into welding and all. Well, they had a ship in New York tipped over or something, and I said, well, let me go there, you know, put on my record and get another stripe, you know. And you don't need any more stripes. You're going to stay right here, you know. So I couldn't go on that, and I couldn't go on Pearl Harbor either. They needed divers. But to show you how important torpedoes were, they stayed there.
Wow. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. You know, I didn't know how important it was at the time, but now I know.
Right.
You know, it was a big thing during the war. I, you know, truthfully say I didn't go to war, but yet I went on a DE, you know, looking for subs and things and all, and it was kind of calm then, you know, not bad, but I went to islands that were bad, but had nothing to do with them, you know. But other than that, that's the story of diving and my service. But
did you have any desire once you got out of the service to go into civilian diving at all?
I did.
Yeah.
I did, and what happened was I was teaching it also, and it was important to get filtered air. But in the service, never did we have filtered air, not once. It's the same air they put in a torpedo that I, you know, bred, but. And not only that, those torpedoes, tanks in the middle, 2,600 pounds. And like they were charging a ship with, like there's 2 tanks on a diver boat, I'll give you an example. And that's the air we use. Well, it's tied up to a dock, and here's a copper line going down the dock somewhere for air. I don't know where it was, but we, with a big wing net, tie it on, and it'd go up to 2,600 pounds, and that copper line would be that big with ice, because that's, you know, a lot of air, and every torpedo had it. That was their propulsion, that and the alcohol, that 185 proof alcohol. That's, you know, that's like those race cars, you know, for 1 mile. And but to get back to, I slept on a dock that they built. I was right on the end where the boat was, and whenever the guys went on liberty, the water's rough, old George had to stay in that room. And the torpedo men, when they're going to school, they had to see if these guys can hack claustrophobia. Right? There's no use teaching the guy torpedoes for submarine if he can't hack it.
Right, yeah.
And the depth, right? So here's the decompression tank, here's my bunk, here's my locker. These guys are ashore. Old George is at work again. So I take 4 in the tank at a time and make a dry dive and talk to them on the way down. And your voice changes, you know, as you go deeper and deeper, and you know, you get a lot of this, and I watch them, you know, and here I am, 19 years old.
Wow,
you know?
yeah.
I have this authority.
Wow, yeah.
And to make them or break them, you know, and I just, yes or no. And come on out, another guy, go in. Well, how many dives do you make in a dry tank, you know? There's nothing tells you here, right?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1 dive a day, or is 3 enough? Right? Can you tell me? No. Right? So anyway, that's a thing I ran with too. I didn't mind doing it because it's bad weather, and that's something to do. Talk to the guys, and the thing that while I'm on his dock, this braid comes down, and he's looking for George Hekowczyk. I said, that's me. Right? And he said, I got to talk to you. I said, oh, I did something wrong, you know, because I got in a brig once for missing a ferry. I went ashore, missed the last ferry, slept on a dock, $21 a month. They fined me $185, but they give you $5, you know. But anyway, that's nothing. But this guy here, I'll never forget him. His name was Lieutenant DuBois. And he said, I got to talk to you in private. I thought something like family or something, you know. He says, I understand you speak Greek. Well, yeah, I speak Greek, but not fluently, you know, because I don't speak it. There's nobody around here Greek. If I want to go to a Greek restaurant, I listen, and now I know what to order. But he says, how would you like to go to school to be an interpreter? I said, oh, it sounds good. He told me all the benefits and all. You know, you get this and that and a degree and all that. But I don't like school. So I says, is it just Greek alone? Or do you have to take the rest? Oh, yeah. You know, this and that.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't my cup of tea,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
I'd fill the shovel another way, but not that way. So I said, well, I also asked Michaels at that time, the Polish guy, what do you think of this, you know? You know, I can go to school and be an interpreter. Yeah, but we need you here, George, you know? And I wish you wouldn't go and all, and, you're a good diver, and, you know, so forth. So I told him, thank you, but I'll stay here, you know?
Tell the story. We were off camera that you were going. If you would have done something, you would have never met Carolyn, your wife.
That's it.
Oh, that's the story. Yeah.
Yeah, see, if I went to school, I would have never met her.
How did that? I mean, why would it that?
Well,
or I guess tell how you met then. I guess
Yeah.
Round out the story.
Yeah. Well, if I went to school, I wouldn't be at the lake teaching water skiing. I started a water ski club with a doctor, a lawyer, a few other people, and we ended up with $1 every year, and we made loads of money, $200 an hour when they hired us, and all the money went towards kids at school scholarships.
Oh, okay.
And we built a ski jump, and I talked to this guy in a restaurant, the bar room. It's on the highway, but we had a place to have the ski jump. We couldn't say where we were, so I asked him if we could put it over here, and he said, "Oh yeah, that'd be great." You know, see the people come in.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I said, "Yeah, but we got to have a place for skis and ropes and stuff, because we can't keep taking this in all the time." And I says, "We need a bulletin board on the glass that we can open up, because our theory was to teach kids to ski and stop stealing hubcaps." That was the theory, okay? Three of us started it with $5 each, okay? and then it was beg and borrow, you know. But I said, we ought to get some monetary money out of it too. He said, oh, George, I said, well, hey, it's going to be good, you know. We'll practice every day, and on the weekend we'll go through a whole show, you know, because we would do a show somewhere else. We had a ski jump we could take, see? And I said, you know, we get $200 an hour. We're willing to do this if you leave us teach and leave, you know, boats and skis and all. And talked to his wife, very, very nice lady. And he was well-to-do. And he said, she says, not only that, if the kids come twice a week, I'll give them a hamburger, a hot dog, and a drink on day to day that they're going to practice. All right? Now, that in mind, I would use it. We need some gas. I said, oh, Snug Harbor is doing this and that, and
Yeah.
you know, this is going to be in a paper, you know, eventually.
Yeah.
And that was gas, wood for the next fire. See, so I got free gas, free carnauba wax, ropes, boats. People were giving me their resort of boats, high boats, and we're teaching the kids how to ski. And we had a tremendous group, and we sent out for what they call a roller toilet paper. It goes all over for the best skiers in the country. Come on down, we're having a tournament. The Bay State Open. They got cranes there with cameras and all this sort of thing. And I'm in charge. I'm the president of the club.
Huh.
And I have pictures and documentations of it. And a ski plane landed. So I went out there with a policeman to tell him that, no, you can't do that here. Well, he introduced himself, Dick Pope. And you know who he is? He owns Cypress Gardens. I park wherever you want. He was coming to hire people for his club, you know.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, that's how good they were.
Huh.
So I love skiing, and I ended up going to tournaments, and I had a girl, 95 pounds, a lot of guts, and I water skied on one leg only, right? I'd start off with two, drop one right away, and she would squat down and I would, she'd get up on my leg, climb up on my shoulders, drop her skis going up, and I made a rope like this with her up there. Hers was longer, and with one ski she'd balance herself and I'd sashay around like that.
Wow.
Right?
Huh.
And I went to what's that? One in New York where they had a big ski jump, you know. Lake Placid. Okay, went there, and the water's tough. I didn't do very. I come in fourth.
Yeah.
It wasn't very good. The water was too rough for me and her. See, the water was calm. It's nice. I still have the ski I did it with. And I skied once on a lake out here to show that I can still do it on one ski. Not nice. One trip is enough.
But with the story, how did you meet Caroline then, or Carolyn then?
Well, she lived on a lake, right? She has two children. Her husband was a salesman, and so, you know, they'd bring the kids over and watch, and, you know, so forth. And she's a pretty lady, you know, and I was going through a divorce, you know, and you want to learn how to ski, I'll teach you how, you know. So, no charge, you know.
Yeah.
I taught her how, and got to know her better and everything. Met her husband and everything, you know, and her husband was brilliant, but a nerd, you know. So anyway, we weren't getting along good, and they were getting a divorce. So she went back to Boston with her folks, with the children, and stopped living at the lake. You know, her and her husband separated.
Yeah.
And so I told her I was going to be in this hospital, but she worked. And I says, can you special me? All right? So she wrote back that, yeah, she could and all. And so I was working at that woolen mill, and just packed my bags and went to Boston for my nose. And yes, she was there. And I got to talking to her, and I says, my nose as well. Can we go out on a date and so forth? And that's how it continued.
I'll be darned.
And her folks are really straight-laced people, They were Adventists. And her mother was in a wheelchair that she took care of all the time. Lovely lady. And my wife has a lot of her mother in her. Just like my young son says, our son, says, Dad, they don't make wives like that anymore.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. So she's very talented. But we met, and I like kids, so the two kids got along with me great, and we got married.
Oh, wonderful.
Didn't have any money, but we made it.
Wonderful.
So,
well, we'll start to wind down this this interview then, George. One question I always like to ask: how did that period of your life, your service years, play a role in your life, affect your life, change your life, your way of thinking, or did it, or was it just simply just a chapter in your life that you went through and you moved on? Do you think?
Yes, that's about it. But it made me stronger being alone and taking this challenge of being a diver, and then leading, taking a boat and doing it.
Yeah.
I had nobody to really teach me in the class or so forth. And actually now, I can take a piece of half-inch manila, just to give you an example, right? Blindfold it, I'll splice it together within a minute.
Wow.
That's unheard of.
Yeah.
And I bought a book, and I learned how, and I teach other people how to do it. And there's some of my work in the bottom there, those coasters. I make that out of I do it on my hand, and it comes in the ball. Do you know what a heaving line is? Well, it's a light rope actually, with a ball with a piece of lead in it. Okay, and they heave it ashore, and they tie the rope to it.
Okay.
And that's the line. That's
right.
because the bow is way out there,
Yeah.
the dock is here. You can't throw that rope.
Yeah.
That's what a heaving line is. Well, to make that heaving line, it's quite a challenge, all right? You got to make a ball with lead in it. How do you do it? So you make it on your hand, okay? And it comes out to, there's 2 or 3 names they call it. If you make it into a ball, put the lead in it, that's a heaving line. If you make it on your hand and open it up, like on that there, right? You can make it big for an anchor so it doesn't scratch the deck. But it's 5 layers, rows of rope, like a rug, right? And with lighter thread, you can make it on your hands. And I love rope, and I learned it on my own. In at church, what I did was I made 5 pieces of wood, about 6 inches long, with 2 holes on the end of it like this, and had a sash cord. You run it through, and it's like a lanyard. It's like a ladder.
Mm-hmm.
At school, at church, I'd get behind a boy in a chair, and I'd show him how to get behind him. This is how you make a bow line. And when he could do it, we'd glue it to one of the boards. And then we'd go down to the square knot, so we'd get 5 knots on it. And at Kodak, I was in the printing also. By accident, they gave it to me. I didn't know anything about printing. So I printed these labels with the child's name, stick it to the back. He put this in his room. He'll have it forever, and never forget those knots.
Yeah.
Okay?
Wow.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I can make things with rope,
Yeah.
All the handrails on a DE, there's a name for it in the Navy. There's a special board with a handle. You put marlin rope in it, and you put it on the hand line, and you put another string to it, and it goes like this on the stick, right? And you wrap it around the hand line, and it's tightly bound all the way down, and then you take 2 inches strip of a bed sheet, and you wrap it around that. Then you put leather on it, you sew it, right? And then you turn it inside out, slide it on, put water on it, make it shrink. It's just a beautiful thing if you know something about it. And then that same knot, they call it a Turk's head. You put it on this cable on both ends, it makes a big knob. And for the kids at church, for Boy Scouts, I would make one for their kerchief, a big knot. It calls a Turk's head. So I like knots, and it's easy for me. So.
Yeah.
And I use it teaching somebody, and yet nobody taught me. See?
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, is there any sort of statement you'd like to make to kind of round off this interview that for those that will watch this someday, or not? Anything to close off the interview? Wide open to anything.
Well, no, I'm thankful for my children, ours. You know, we call it his, hers, and ours. And it turns out that one of my sons is a diver.
Is that right?
For the county and for the city of Loveland. He just gave it up. He's been on it for 25 years as a volunteer diver, and that helicopter that went into Carter Lake, that's over 100 feet. He was on it, and so one of my children, even though it's hers, you know, it's mine.
Yeah.
He's a diver and well qualified, and he's got plaques to show it and all. He's also an EMT, and he's also a pilot. So I'm very proud of him, and I'm proud of all my children. They're doing well, and we have a good family, and they're close by.
Very good.
Yeah, but I'm still dad.
Well, George, I want to thank you for sitting down today to tell your story. More importantly, though, I want to thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a picture of me, and I got in the service, and after I learned how to dive, I ended up with this diving boat. It's actually all wood. It's 50 foot long. That's an air compressor. You see that piece of metal near my left foot. There's one up front. Those are used for our anchors. And I shouldn't be out here. That's very dangerous. And this is in the daytime. Usually I'm working at night. And I ended up with this boat and 2 men, and the 3 of us just dropped anchor, made a dive, picked up the anchor, dropped the anchor. That was our job, finding torpedoes that went astray, that were being tested.
Tell a story about that.
Okay, this is amazing to me. Our young son, without telling us, on his computer, he's talking to somebody in England about diving, and he's a sculptor. So a picture of me he sent to him, and he says, I would like a sculpture made to the exact uniform he was wearing. Suit, not uniform. And he was hoping he would get it for Father's Day, and he didn't think he was going to make it, but the day before Father's Day, UPS went to his house, and lo and behold, he had this. He was thrilled, and when I got it, I was absolutely amazed.
I'll bet, yeah.
And he said to me, Dad, don't ever lose that. I want that. So I'm pretty proud of him for doing that.
I'll be darned. And that's a pretty good replica of what you would look like when you were diving, huh?
Pretty close, yeah. And there's the knee pads that wear out. You see it? So it's pretty close. And there's the shoes that are 25 pounds a piece. And if you look close, right at the bottom, that's wood on a board, and there's solid lead across it. It's I don't know, 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch thick. It's the whole shoe is lead attached to wood, and made in those shoes.
It's beautiful. I'm fine. So George, this is the book you were talking about?
Yes, this is a book that we found by accident, actually, and we kept looking for it. My wife did a lot of research, but couldn't find it. And I heard Tom Eady wrote a book about why I like diving, and I couldn't locate it. I was at a friend of mine's house while having dinner, and I mentioned it to him, so he got on his computer, and he started to look for it. I said, he's not going to find it, you know. And he's scanning, and he's looking through submarines. And I says, hold it. Right there I see a name, Tom Eady. Okay? And I said, oh, that's unbelievable. All right? And there's a book by him, Why I Like Diving. There's one in Bar Harbor, Maine, and then there's one in Tennessee. And I says, gee, can we get it? He says, yeah, you can order it online. I said, well, let's get the one at Bar Harbor, Maine. That may not have any mold on it, you know, thinking moisture. And I got it, and this book is gold to me. And this man is in uniform, and that's the first time I ever knew he had a suit, because all he had was dungarees with me for 2 years. And all he had was a little brass on his hat. That's all he ever wore. And by reading his book, I find out that he's a submariner and a diver. He's put 20 years in the service, also Michael's, and they're retired. And the government sought him out and made him in charge of our diving department because it was in peril, I don't know if that's the right word, to get these torpedoes out and working. Yeah. They couldn't make them fast enough, and they needed all of them to make sure they're running. So they kept us busy for a long time.